Thomas here with Remax Services with my normal Craig with Cross Country.
Hello everybody. Hi Rebecca.
Hi. And today we have a special guest, Melvina Santiago.
Hi,
From,
thank you for having me here.
Of course. She's with our in-house title company, Corporate Title. And so I figured this would be cool to talk about how the mortgage company and the title company interact and how to create a smooth closing. So, Melvina.
Okay, so my name is Melvina Santiago and I work for Corporate Title. We work very closely with Remax and our lender here at Cross Country Mortgage. I just want to talk about a little bit what our title company has and what are the perks of having in-house attorneys. We have 5 in-house attorneys and we like to facilitate the entire transaction. If there's any legal matters, then we have them to actually guide us through the entire process. We're very diligent with Cross Country Mortgage, and we would like to discuss a little bit more about.
We're gonna talk about pain. We're gonna talk about
Pain?
what things do we see at the end of processes that should be done ahead of time that can help avoid delayed closings, problems at closing. Like, what are some of the things that we could be doing together that you see on your side? I know I see sometimes on my side that Cross Country and Corporate Title solve behind the scenes, that it's, as a real estate agent, you can help get ahead of these things. And as a lender, I can help get ahead of some of these things as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, Melvina, what would you say is what's the biggest source of delays of closing that lenders maybe miss, or what are some of the things that you see at the day of closing that cause problems?
Okay, one of the things that I would like to mention is credits. It's very important that we are aware of the credits, that it's being sourced, that there's proof of it, that is provided to the lender, and that the realtor communicates this to the lender as well.
You're talking about credits from...
Whether it is a credit from the seller, whether it is additional monies that
we're not talking about credit scores.
No, not credit scores. We're talking about...
Okay, yeah, so a lot of times throughout the transaction, either at inspection or at the walkthrough, sellers will agree to give a credit.
Right.
Correct.
We as the
We
lender,
talked about credits.
a lot of times we don't find out about it until the day of closing.
Oh,
And
really?
sometimes it shows up on a CD, which means that the title company knew about it and the lender
Closing
didn't.
document?
Or other times
Right.
it shows up because we knew about it and the title company didn't know about it. Right? And so it's important that the title company and the lender work together, and it's important that realtors tell both the lender and the title company when there's going to be a credit, because
Right.
it throws off all the numbers at closing. Also, it can sometimes torpedo a deal because you'll get an addendum that says seller to give buyer a $5,000 credit because of a roof leak.
Uh-huh.
And as a lender, it can cause a lot of pain because as a lender, we don't want to know that there's a roof leak.
Right.
We want to know that there's a credit towards closing.
Correct.
And sometimes we don't have time to defend that. Like, if we don't get ahead of that, have it revised or whatever. Hi, Camille.
Hey, Camille. Hey.
Hi.
We are
Oh,
live.
we're live.
If you want to say hi to the people.
Another thing that we see too, in addition to seller credits, are realtor commission credits.
Yes.
And so if a realtor is giving a borrower a credit, there has to be actually a letter,
An addendum.
an addendum or a letter from the broker authorizing the realtor to give back a portion of their commission and spelling that out.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the
And
things.
you need to know all of this.
And also
No.
surveys. It's important a lot of times that our borrowers, that they actually do authorize a survey for us to go ahead. And the reason why it has to be authorized in advance
From the borrower.
is because in the event it doesn't close, then the surveyor has to get paid. So that's one of the things that we need to make sure
That
in
means that the
advance.
client has to pay for it.
Yes, indeed, that is correct.
Yeah, we have it a lot of times, like where the title company, not you guys, but the title companies and lender will kind of pinball whose responsibility it is or who's requiring the survey. And so sometimes it just doesn't get ordered as a result. And so the right answer is,
Yeah, who does require a survey?
so like,
But I didn't even know you needed, like, I've worked at
There
architecture
needs to be
firms,
a
I didn't know
survey.
you needed it
There
as
needs
a
to be a
realtor.
survey because there's an endorsement that
yeah.
every lender requires for us to go ahead and write out the exception on the title commitment, and if we don't, we can't do it unless we do have a survey. because our underwriter has to review and make sure that we can actually remove that exception off the title commitment, and
That's
that is what
exactly
is called marketable title. So we have to convey marketable
Yeah,
title.
like a title company or a realtor will say, well, the lender is requiring the survey, which is kind of a misnomer. It's not even true. We're requiring clear title.
And title
And
companies
you need
require
a
the
survey to give clear title, so it's not really the full story. So
We all work together.
unless there's a new,
Gotcha.
sometimes though, a seller may have a recent survey. And if they have that, they can endorse it over.
Correct, all we have to do is recertify and have the surveyor go ahead and update and just pay a small fee, which is great.
Because they
you
might
know.
have it, like if they did work
You
on the
can
house
save money
or
as a new
whatever,
buyer,
yeah.
right.
So we
As
all,
long as there's nothing that has been actually,
But usually, I
any
mean,
improvements in the backyard and in the
Right.
land,
Right.
you know.
yeah,
it's good to have a survey regardless.
it's definitely good to have one, especially if you're ever gonna do, you wanna know exactly what your property lines are, if you ever need to do anything to your property.
Yeah.
You need that
Encroachments,
stuff.
that is
Yeah.
very important,
Yeah.
yes.
So we got credits,
Survey.
survey,
Now my question is actually, sometimes we have closings here at the office, and it's like, oh, we're still waiting for the loan approval. What delays it so much? Like sometimes people are here like hours,
and there's no money.
and there's no money.
Yeah, so like, I think what you're talking about,
yeah,
so there's the money, like when someone gets a loan, the lender has to send the money for the loan,
Yeah.
the borrower has to send their money.
yeah. And then Melvina's
Then-
sitting here with people like. "Do-do-do-do-do."
Sometimes that's not because of the money though, sometimes that's because mortgage companies have funding conditions.
Mhm.
So cross-country, we don't require the signed documents back to fund the loan.
Gotcha.
So once people are done, assuming the money's here, which it normally is, they can fund. So sometimes Malvina's there, telling jokes because
Doing stand-up
they're
comedy.
like drinking, because they're
Drinking the wine they got.
they're trying to kill time because the lender, whatever lender the buyer is using, requires all the documents back, and sometimes they can take hours to review it.
Yes.
And they may come back after 2 hours
Why
and be
is
like,
that?
you missed the T on, page 26.
Initials.
But why is that done at closing? Why isn't that done before?
To
It's just a
some-
requirement that some lenders do require to review in order to approve and then authorize disbursement.
Yeah,
At closing.
so we don't have that. We
That's
catch,
the great thing about cross-country
Cross-country.
mortgage, yeah.
but other
Okay.
times there's delays because the money didn't get ordered early enough. It could have been a rush closing, and for whatever reason, the loan got cleared that morning, and so the wire's delayed, or there's an issue with the warehouse line that's sending the money, or the buyer didn't wire their money in
It's not
time.
a warehouse of money.
It's not a warehouse. Somewhere there is a warehouse of money, but that's
It's not.
there's sometimes the buyer doesn't wire their money until 11 o'clock when there's a 12 o'clock closing, and the
Correct.
money's not there yet.
But we definitely normally, we do advise the borrower all the time. And to facilitate a lot of times in our title company, what we do, we also allow to have them wire the money, in advance. And we try to facilitate and make sure that that doesn't hold up the closing. And we give them more or less the estimated final figure, which is normally accurate. But again, we always have to coordinate with the lender as well to make sure that that number is final.
Right.
We tell people to do that and overshoot it by like $5,000, and then just show up, and then they'll just get a refund.
That's right.
So if we know it's going to be within a couple grand, we tell them just overshoot it, just go, be done with it. So the money's here, and they just show up, and there's a check waiting for
Which
them.
that's great,
Oh,
that
that's
cross country, they're, okay with that,
Yeah.
we tend to, that's why we like working with them.
Yeah.
And another thing I know you guys see, because we see it all the time, is divorce situations where
Oh yeah.
someone, lo and behold, the day of closing, you find out they really are married. They might have told us they're not, but they are. Or maybe the
Yes.
seller was really married and they said they weren't. And somehow, some way, the spouse needs to be there.
Yes, the spouse has to sign the mortgage. If you are married, it doesn't matter if you took title as a married person, at the time of conveyance, you must have your spouse sign
Yeah.
on the mortgage.
And so
On the deed and on the mortgage, if you're married, your spouse has to join.
Even so, sometimes you also said before that like they'll say they're married but they're really divorced,
or they're separated.
or they're separated.
And so-
But legally, they're still married.
Yeah.
So
they
on
need to sign.
conveyance, from seller conveying to the borrower, they have to sign off, the spouse has to join the warranty deed, and on the mortgage, the spouse has to join, even though she's not on the credit, on the
So
loan.
can you be on the title and deed and not be on the mortgage, or vice versa?
You can be on a title and not be on a mortgage.
Correct.
Or can you be on the mortgage and
That's
not on
exactly
title?
correct, you can be,
I was always wondering
So if, another thing that we see too similarly is, like someone selling and, or someone selling and they're on title of, they have their mother on title.
Right.
And maybe they didn't tell their mom they're selling. And so now their
Correct.
mom's not available to sign off on the closing.
So then that will
You know, or
actually
they're out of
kill the deal,
state,
and then
or-
we won't be able to close. We have to go ahead and mail out all the documents, have them
Yeah.
sign off on it with a notary, have them back on time for closing, and then pretty much take care of the rest.
So the take home lesson is upfront, lenders and title companies, so there's never a mistake, and realtors, I suggest all of us should all ask their respective clients, whether it's the buyers and or the sellers, who's on title,
Yeah.
who's married, who's not married, and exactly how
You
they
have to
want to,
disclose everything.
and on the buy side, how they want to vest. With a middle
Yes.
initial, are they a second, a third, a junior, a senior, you know, like,
That's crazy. That
everything
people don't
needs-
tell you guys.
are they gonna take title in a trust? Did they tell anyone that? Are they gonna have a power of attorney at closing? Like,
God.
yeah, we
All
find out,
this,
so.
yes.
People don't
And a lot of these things we do find out the day of
They,
or a day before, and I mean, you have to redraft all the
Mhm.
documents. Now you need
And then
proof
there's
of the
steps in
trust, now you
here.
need to see who's really on the trust, who
Mhm.
can sign, if that person is deceased. I mean, there's a number of problems that may arise that we try to avoid them in advance, and that's why the great thing about having attorneys is that we
Yeah.
try to find a solution to that.
Yeah.
See,
But again, it has to
Malvina
be
thought she
disclosed.
wasn't gonna have enough to talk about,
I
and that she was
know.
gonna, all we have to do
We
is get,
better. Yeah.
get her talking about what she
It's just
sees every single day.
Yeah. Well, that's what I told her. It's just like having a conversation, except we're
Yeah.
recorded. There's not even anybody watching it live. People will watch later.
Oh my gosh, thank God.
Everybody will see like.
I'll
ding,
be
ding,
watching it, oh, wow.
So- You gotta have the title company and the mortgage company and the realtors all need to work together.
Yes.
You're as good as your weakest link in a transaction. Everybody works together. Everyone has everything documented. Everyone makes sure that everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing and that we get all the information up front.
Right.
Stuff's gonna come up, but if you work together, you know, and everyone has each other's back, generally you can work through these things, you know?
Right,
And
as a
it's-
team.
Yeah, and when it's not, or when someone is just, like if we are lazy on our side and we're just throwing stuff at you and not doing our stuff up front, you know, we're gonna have a ton of mistakes versus like the one outlier situation, you know, sometimes people change stuff, you can't
Right.
prevent that, but if continually you're asking the right questions up front and everyone's, you know, you're gonna have a lot less mistakes and a lot less brain damage, which, you know, in our business is unavoidable,
Of
but,
course.
Richie Romano.
so,
We covered pretty much
She
You got
covered
any
it.
Gillette shapers for him?
serving.
She'll lick your chest. It's great.
Well, do you want to make another TV appearance
Frank,
today?
I got a question.
We're
Brian
live.
Bowles, the franchise,
Hi,
is gonna make a
franchise.
live appearance.
If Kelly Baker does 477
We're
minus
live.
10, would it work 467 or does it have to be 467
Just give me,
straight?
I'll be there in 2 minutes, give me 2 minutes.
Wow.
I gotta use a calculator.
Wait, hold on. Wait, what?
These are the type of things.
My face or his arm? Which area?
Anyways,
The type of things
We're,
that happen at Remax.
Richie, you're
thank you
great.
for having us.
Yeah.
We're gonna,
Thank you for having us, Rebecca.
Seriously, Bowles.
I have Brian's arm here and I'm like, yeah, we're gonna stop now.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Good, good. I didn't even recognize you with the beard, honestly.
Just thank you guys, we're gonna do our parts, corporate
Maybe
title
we'll have
and
moving on again.
cross country and corporate title are gonna work
Like
hard to
review.
make your transactions close smoothly and easily, and we'll deal with the hard stuff behind the scenes.
Yes.
Yes.
Behind the scenes.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Finish.
All right.